In this episode of the Project Management Podcast, I show you how not to work 60-hour weeks.
Hello and welcome to the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com. I'm Cornelius Fichtner. We are coming to you live from the exciting 2018 PMI Global Conference in Los Angeles, California. And with me right now here in the hallways is Kim Wasson. Hello, Kim.
Hello, Cornelius. It's nice to be with you again.
Yes, thank you. Another conference, another podcast interview, it seems.
Indeed. I'm switched directions a little bit this year, talking about different things.
Yeah, so you've been speaking at quite a few. How many is this that you're
This is 3.
This is the 3rd. Oh,
yes.
So I caught you at every
right
single
at the beginning.
presentation.
Because we talked before I started even coming to PMI.
Yeah. How is this for you as a speaker? How much value does it bring to come here, speak, meet people?
It's actually quite valuable, and the preparation for the conference gets better every year. There's more support. They're more concise. They offer a lot more reviews, and I love meeting people, and I like to talk about the things that I talk about.
When I presented a few years back, I had to actually submit the white paper. Do they still require
They do
you
not
to
require that.
Okay.
Yes, actually, last year they didn't. The year before they did. It was quite a shock because I didn't know I'd have to do it the year I did. I had to back up and write it down.
Right. So for anyone out there who's interested in speaking at a PMI conference, it is now much easier and more accessible. If you have a good topic and a good presentation,
yes,
you can do it.
It's not that difficult. A lot of they have Toastmasters that you can review with, and it's very well done, and people here are very nice. It's nice to present here. People are supportive.
When is your presentation?
2:00 today.
2:00 today. Any idea how many people have signed up?
No, they don't share that. So I don't know. I might go into an empty room. It's a different topic. The emotional intelligence that I talk on, the rooms are always packed because it's such a hot topic. So we'll see how this one.
So you said it. You've changed your focus a little bit. Your topic this year is how not to work 60-hour weeks. And we're not going into emotional intelligence today.
No.
Why the change?
I didn't have really a lot new to say on the emotional intelligence front. And I've been doing more and more of this with the people that I coach, this time management, because I think we were already, project managers always have a lot of incoming. We always have. And with the internet and everything else that's going on, the incoming never stops. And so people get behind. My people that I work with work a lot of extra hours, and it's really hard to get hold of that. And so as I've been working through it, I've actually codified what I'm telling people, and it's working well. It's helping people. And so I want to put it out to a broader audience.
All right. So let's put a shout out right there. You help people with their time management.
Yes.
So if anybody after this interview feels, this sounds great, I need assistance because I'm sure I won't be able to get through this on my own, they can get in touch with you.
Yes, I can absolutely do that.
Excellent.
Yes.
Wonderful. So how exactly did you come up with this approach?
Over a period of years, I'm kind of a non-standard person, and so I had to roll my own time management, and I found that a lot of other people are doing that the canned systems, what I think of as the canned systems, Covey and the daytimer stuff and the Pomodoro, they worked really well for the person who developed them, but if it doesn't fit exactly with how you work, it's just this extra stuff that you have to do, and you drop it because it's extra. It's not how you work. And so there are some ground rules that you have to have for any time management, but you need to customize it, and it needs to be fit in with what you do, so it's not extra work. It's just managing the work that you have, and that's how I've evolved it. And I use a lot of the emotional intelligence, or at least some of those concepts, like the learning styles, to help people develop systems that work for them. So, if you're an auditory learner, you let Siri read your reminders, and if you're a tactile learner, you use a whiteboard or whatever it is that feels right to you and doesn't make extra work.
Okay, yeah. So you jumped right into the learning styles, but allow me to take a step back and go at this from the very beginning. Why do we need time management? What does it help us become?
It helps us understand what is on our plate. It helps us work on the right thing at the right time. That's the biggest part of it. For various reasons, we all procrastinate on things that we know we have to do, or we forget about them, or our list gets too long. Or we go down a rabbit hole because somebody's right in front of us. right? And then we get to the end of the day and we're like, I'm tired. I know I worked. I don't know what I did, but it wasn't what I thought I was going to do when I started out. So that pulls it all together. It also gives us a chance to construct some time for thinking, to do the things that we don't have time to do. So we skip them, or we do them at home, or we do them late at night. Risk management, risk assessment, learning new things, fixing processes. Having a system helps you carve out time to do those things that on the Eisenhower matrix are important but not urgent. They're not right in front of us, but they'll keep us out of trouble.
Okay, let's talk about the Eisenhower matrix right away. Let's get this out of the way. So it consists of 4 quadrants.
Yes.
What are they?
They're on 2 axes, important and urgent. So the quadrants are urgent and important. I know these ones by heart.
I'm showing her slide so she can cheat, and it's like, no,
I got this stuff. No, there's urgent and important, and that's like the system's crashing, and you got to deal with that. You absolutely have to deal with that. There's urgent and not important. That's, the guy who sits next to you coming by to talk about the game last weekend and whatever. It's right in front of you, but it's not important. But, we spend our time on that. There's not urgent and not important, which we should not be doing ever. And there's not urgent and important, and that's the sharpening the saw. This is the thinking stuff that you do to keep you out of urgent and important, to keep you away from the system crashes and the emergencies. It's the pre-work and meeting your long-term goals and things like that all go in important but not urgent.
Okay, so we have not urgent, not important. Don't do those.
Don't do them.
Right. We have urgent and important. That's at the exact other spectrum.
Yes,
that's when something
now.
crashes.
Yes.
Right. And then in the middle, we have important, not urgent, and urgent, not important. Which of these 4 should we actually be focusing on most?
Important and not urgent.
Important and not urgent.
Absolutely. Although, if it's important and urgent, you have to do it.
Yeah,
right?
right.
Your CEO shows up in your office, you better deal with that.
The server is down.
Right. You have to do with that. But the more you do of important, not urgent, the less important and urgent is going to come at you, because you've laid the groundwork for keeping out of trouble.
In your presentation, you also suggest that people should track their time for a few days to see where their time goes. Have you done this for yourself?
I have done this for myself, and it is incredibly annoying. It absolutely is. And I totally agree with it, especially as project manager, because we're switching gears. But it shows you where you're wasting your time. It shows you where you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing. And it also gives you like categories of work that will help you put a time management system together. You kind of know what general areas things go to, and you start to be able to apportion time to them.
Yeah, it's actually quite a relatively simple table that you have.
Start time,
stop time, the activity you've been working on, and the people who were involved. Why the people who were involved? Because you can start to see if you have someone who's sucking down your time that shouldn't be. Okay, got it.
Or someone who needs help or education, or sometimes you're just the shortest path. But sometimes people they need something that they haven't gotten, and so they're just coming to you, and so you can start to identify that too.
Earlier on, I believe you mentioned learning styles. What is the influence of my learning style, my working style, when it comes to my personal time management needs?
The whole thing about learning styles is everybody takes in information in all the different ways, but there's one way that's easiest for each person. The easier it is for you to do something, the more likely you're going to do it. So you want to make your time management system appeal to that part of you. So if you're a tactile person, you need something to touch, and it's going to stick, and it's going to be easy, and it's going to fit in with how you normally work. So that's mostly it. It's just some self-knowledge that helps you put together something sustainable.
Right. And just as a reminder for everybody, we have visual learners, people who read, people who listen, so reading and auditory, then you already mentioned a tactile, and then kinetic. What are those again?
People who need to move themselves or the information.
Oh, that's me. That's definitely me. I am constantly on the move, pacing, up and down, thinking. Yeah.
Absolutely, kinetic.
All right. How do I determine what my learning style is?
You can go out and take a survey. The best site that I found for it is called VARK, V-A-R-K. But pretty much, when you hear what they are. If the best way to reach you is emails, and when you need to call customer support, you look for the chat, you're a reading learner. If you go to the internet and look at the news, and if there's no video, you shut it down, you're probably a visual learner. If you'd rather talk on the phone than get email or have people show up in your office, you're probably auditory. If you keep moving, if you feel like you need to move to be absorbing information, then you're kinetic. And if you need to touch things, you're tactile. That a lot of times translates into taking notes that you don't read. The idea is not to take notes so that you can go back and look at them. The idea is take notes because you're touching the information.
When I prepared for our interview, I looked at these 5 and I thought to myself, well, I'm definitely kinetic because I'm constantly moving around, but I'm also tactile.
Yes, more than one. Everyone can take in all the ways. A lot of people, there are 2. I've only met one person who says all 5 were the most comfortable, and I worked with him for years. He was a sponge. So he absolutely, it really didn't matter to him, but most people have 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Earlier when we talked about tracking your time, you mentioned categorization.
Yes.
How is categorization important for my time tracking? My scheduling.
It's really important for looking at your list and figuring out, it keeps you from, among other things, having a big list that has no differentiation. But it also helps you understand where your time is going, whether that's where your time is supposed to be going, and it helps you articulate it also to management. A good thing about a time management system is you know where your time went. So when it comes to status reports or things that come up where somebody says, I need you to do this, and then you have your lists and you could say, okay, here are the 6 things that I can't do if I'm doing this. You good with that? So the categorization just gives you some broad places to look and knowledge about what things are going to have to be done. And it also lets you kind of balance. So if you really like doing one kind of stuff, for example, I do a lot of coaching. Mm-hmm. If I like coaching better than anything else, I might spend all my time doing that, and the rest of the stuff would start to suffer. So I'd start to be able to track that kind of pattern.
Okay. So how is the Eisenhower matrix, calling it urgent, important, how is that different from categorization?
It's a prioritization. The Eisenhower matrix is one way to prioritize.
Okay.
And priorities are really important because, again, we tend to work on the things that we find the most comfortable and the most fun and whatever. And so we need to prioritize. And again, it stops you from having a big list, but it stops from procrastinating. And that's one method. Prioritization method is really personal, right? Some people like 1, 2, 3, some like the high, medium, low, or colors, or whatever, but it really is the priority of the other items in the list as, how they compare to each other. Mm-hmm. So you can figure out what you really need to be working on.
So Eisenhower helps us to determine what should I actually be working on and what should I not be working on.
Right.
And the prioritization says I'm doing it in this order.
Yes. Yes. And the categorization just is,
whatever.
Think of them as file folders.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a way to compartmentalize information.
Okay. You also talk about having to break big tasks down. We're all project managers here, so we know about,
how to do that.
You cannot eat an elephant all at once. One bite after the other.
Yes.
So how important is that for non-project managers to get to that understanding?
Oh, it's absolutely critical. I do this as a 4-hour workshop for non-project managers, and that's a big chunk of it is here's how you break things down, especially for deadline performers, because deadline performers don't start things until they're just not motivated, right? They get that adrenaline rush. I'm not one. I may plan my term paper out the first day of class kind of person, but I live with a couple of them. And I see, that it's just a motivation. So when you break things down, not only do you know where you are, and you can work on more than one thing, not exactly at the same time, but on the same day, you can make progress on more than one thing. But if you're a deadline performer, you could set deadlines for each of the pieces. The other thing is when they're a big ball of stuff, it's hard to know what string to pull. And we avoid it. And a lot of project managers that I work with don't apply it to their time management.
Really?
Yeah. It's really interesting to me that just they're in different compartments, I guess, in their minds. And they don't apply it. And when I could bring it up, the light goes on. But you have to make that time to think to break things down. And that's hard for project managers because it feels selfish. It feels like they're spending time on yourself and not on all the other things that are going on around you, but it's really very important.
Mm-hmm. So now that we understand sort of on a very high level what we need to do, let's go down to what kind of systems are there available? How do I determine which one works for me? And how do I apply it so that it actually works for me? Because usually out of the box, you can't use these things.
No, you can't. What I usually tell people to do, and this is when we build today, that's where we're going to start with your task list. Okay. You should have a task list for the day. And
for the day.
For
not
the
just
day.
The
Not just, you have a backlog.
now we're getting into agile.
That's the agile part of it.
Okay.
You have a backlog because otherwise we go down rabbit holes, right? We have a backlog, but we have today's tasks. And what I found this to be really critical. 2 stand-up kind of meetings with yourself a day. Before you leave, write down what you got to do tomorrow. 5 minutes, right? It's just synthesizing what did I not do. Just like agile, right? What didn't I finish? What's more important? What do I have to pull from? Before you leave. If you rush out the door at the end of the day because the daycare is going to close and your kids aren't there, set a reminder before you rush out the door. Write down your list. When you come in the morning, before you look at your mail, before you look at your messages, before you answer any phones, look at it. Look at the task list so you know what you thought you were going to do today. And if you have incoming that displaces it, because when you have it in front of you, you could start to prioritize. Do I really have to do this now? Is it more important than what I thought I had to do? You write it on your task list, and then you know where your time went. So that's the first thing I have people do. And how they do that tends to start to point toward tools. Do they want to put it on a whiteboard? Whiteboards and written things are a little dangerous, so you have to back them up, right? So the folks I work with who use whiteboards, take a picture of it a couple times a day. Because if someone comes in with a good idea and erases your whiteboard, your time management system is gone. Or if you have it in a book or this is one of the tools a lot of people that I work with
we're opening
use.
the backpack.
I'm opening
here,
up the backpack and pulling out just a file folder.
Okay.
See, it has room for 6 Post-its on the front.
I'm now taking out my phone and I'm taking a picture of this situation
See
here.
if this is useful in a podcast, but
This is now becoming a lot more interactive. Yes, all right.
yes, indeed. So there's room for 6 Post-its on the front.
Yep.
That's your first top priority. None of these Post-its come off unless you finished it or you're demoting it.
Okay. So I see 3 red and 3 yellow. That just happens to be the color.
You can use it for categories.
Okay.
So that's
right.
And inside the front cover of this file folder, 6 more. That's your second priority, and it has the same rules.
All right. Not a picture coming here, ladies and gentlemen. Good.
And the back cover, that's your backlog. Many things as you want on there, because you're not working on those until they reach here.
You have just saved my life. Okay, let me tell you how I manage my tasks, okay? And what I'm seeing here is like, this is fantastic. This is exactly what I need.
It works well for a lot of people.
Okay, if I now flipped through my phone, I would probably find a picture somewhere of my sticky notes, okay? My sticky notes are up on a humongous cardboard box that stands in my office, and it's just an absolute mess of things.
Kinetic and tactile.
Yeah. And the way I get to these sticky notes is in the morning I tend to go walking, and I love my cup of tea in the morning, so I stop at a coffee shop and I order sometimes I get tea. Most of the times I get things that look like tea. And yeah, I'm a bit picky there. And I just sit down, and for 45 minutes, not just for 5 minutes, I sit there and I think. And I think about more than just what do I need to do today. I think about the big things, the strategies, everything that I need to do. And of course, I can't have my sticky notes with me when I go walking out in the morning. I just have a little black book and I write it down in the black book. And later on, I convert those into sticky notes and they go up. And I tell you, I literally have sticky notes everywhere. I have sticky notes on my desk. I have sticky notes on my laptop, on my screen, on that box. My wife at one point said, "Enough, you are not allowed to put sticky notes in the kitchen." This is fantastic.
It's a simple organization. And if you take a picture of your priorities, then you got it backed up.
Is there anything on the backpack?
No.
Nothing. Okay,
it's too easy
good.
for stuff to fall off when you start to pile them up there.
This is, oh my God, this is fantastic.
It's a simple thing. I showed this to a mastermind group a few years ago that I was part of, and my business coach who was running the group at the time pointed me to something recently on the web where one of the women who picked this up and ran with it had a stack of sticky notes about 2 feet high in her office, and it was because when she finished, she'd put it on the stack, and she could see how much progress she made.
Yeah. I also like to work occasionally with lists. Okay, today I have to do these 6 things. And I like to not have them electronically. I like to have them on a piece of paper, because the act of just scratching it out and going, done, done, done. That is just the achievement.
Cathartic.
Is pushing it forward.
It absolutely is. And people who do it electronically, I point them toward applications with checkboxes that make noises.
Yes.
Right? So it's not really, when you're tactile and kinetic, a lot of times the paper is important.
And with the noise, that would also have the auditory people,
Yes.
I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. What about automated tools?
There are literally thousands of automated tools. The big ones that people don't think about, OneNote and Evernote, depending on what platform you're on, those integrate with Outlook, and it's easy Cal right on the Mac. So you could use, the Outlook and Thunderbird and all these actually have tasks and calendars and categorization in them, but you can go further and do OneNote and EasyNote. So those are usually available in a corporate environment. There are, for people who like the Eisenhower Matrix, there's actually an app that does really nicely on a pad that's called Priority Matrix, and it integrates with online calendar, just now integrating with Outlook 365 and Google Calendar and a couple other ones. So there are those automated tools. There's something called Wunderlist, which is free, and it syncs across platforms, so you can get to it on the web, and it'll sync with your devices, and it has all that categorization and that kind of thing.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this in 2 years from now, none of these tools will exist anymore.
Actually, Wunderlist is new. Wunderlist is absolutely new, but Priority Matrix has been around for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And there's Todoist and Toodle-Do that a lot of people like, and they're not free. But yeah, they come and they go.
Yeah.
So if you're in an office environment, you probably have tools available to you that might be useful.
In your experience, how rampant is it in our industry of project management that we have perfect project plans, but when it comes to our own time management, we just lack?
Yes, it's absolutely prevalent at least in my own experience, because I work with a lot of people at a lot of companies, and it's absolutely there. We put ourselves last. We go down rabbit holes. We work when people are not there, and this is what falls off the end. And part of it is because the canned systems don't work, right? Parts of them work. For different people. I mean, there are a few people I'm sure that they absolutely work for, but I haven't found those people. So it's hard to find a system that actually works and the time to put it together.
Now, you just helped me probably find a system that works for me with that folder and the sticky notes. Let's help our listeners out. Where do we start in order to find our system?
Start with some thinking about what styles you like and whether you need to touch something. And write your daily task list down the first place that seems comfortable to you, because that's going to help you figure out that wherever you put it, that if you start writing it on the whiteboard, that's probably where you're going to want to keep it. If you are online all day long and you're already using Outlook, that's probably going to be comfortable for you. So most of it is try it and see what feels good. And if it doesn't feel good, find something else. Don't force something because it worked for someone else, because one size doesn't fit all.
I have to admit, I started with an electronic list. It didn't work for me.
Yeah.
It worked for a while. I kept it up for a while, but then at some point it was just I didn't open it up anymore.
It's what falls off.
Yeah,
it's
and
not
I
how
needed
you
to see it right there and then. I needed the visual.
Yes, and so that just was not going to be the right tool for you. Now, looking at your list in the morning and making it at night, that getting into that habit, and you already have that habit, right? You just don't have a good
every
place
day,
to put it.
but yeah. So you're suggesting start in the morning by looking at your list and prioritizing and putting things up top.
Well, you should have it all done the night before. Do it the day before when everything's fresh in your mind and there's no incoming.
Right.
And then you know what it was you thought. Now, when you come in the morning, look at it. It may change during the day, but you start out. So when new stuff comes in, you can look at your list and say, is it more important or does it go in my backlog?
Okay, good. So let me take you back 4 days. We are a PMI registered education provider.
Yes.
4 days ago, I got an email from PMI that says, hey, your tri-annual audit is due in 30 days. Okay. I had expected it. I didn't just exactly know when it would come, but every 3 years as a registered education provider, you have to do an audit. So suddenly something came in that is urgent and important. It's going to take more than just a day's worth of work. So it's something that's got to be planned. Yeah? But there are always these things that suddenly land on our desks and just like, I don't want to do this. I have so much work over here already. Now what? You got to deal with it.
Sometimes you have to do it, but when you have your list, you and I kind of work for ourselves, so
yeah.
we just have ourselves to deal with. But in general, it's something to take to your management, right? To say, look, I have to do this. This stuff's going to suffer, so you need to back me on this, or you assign it to someone else, or whatever it is that you need to do. Because sometimes we have to do stuff. I mean, I know that the title of the thing is how not to work 60-hour weeks. Sometimes we will, but it should be the minority of the time. Mm-hmm. There will be crunch times. But yeah, if it comes in, you got to do it, and you break it down, right? That's the first thing. How much of this do I actually have to do today? Doesn't mean that I have to do, as you said, you have to do this audit, but you don't have to do everything for the audit today. What you have to do today when it comes in is break it down, figure out when to do it.
Yeah, I actually put a daily 1 hour work on the audit for the next 30 days into my calendar, just so that I block the time. And
that's a big thing, too. When you put it on your calendar, it becomes real. And if it's not on your calendar for those blocks of time, you'll let someone else suck it down.
Yeah, exactly.
People don't expect us to be answering emails and coming to the door and answering our phone when we're running meetings. We need to accord that same thing to ourselves to get some work done. Mm-hmm. So
each of these systems has its pros and cons, pitfalls, gotchas, issues. How do we respond to those?
There are some general ones, like don't make massive lists or break things down so small that you can't process them and they're too big. If it's not working, fix it. Identify it and fix it, which may mean that you have to put a reminder on your calendar that says every couple weeks, decide if it's working and if I need to adjust, because there are so many tools available, so many ways to do these things. If we don't find it the first time, adjust. Doesn't mean throw the whole system out, because usually something's working. It just takes a little introspection and carving out that time to look at it.
I told you that I used to use an electronic list,
yes.
But at some point it's just faded and I didn't use it anymore. What are some of the warning signs that should make us perk up and go, oh, wait a minute, this isn't working for me?
If stuff's slipping through the cracks and you didn't know, you're not using your system, it's not working. If you miss deadlines and you didn't expect to miss a deadline, it's absolutely not working. Control's a big one. Even though we got things coming at us, when you have a time management system that's working, you should feel like you have some control. At least you know what's going to fall off the plate when you're working on this big thing. If you're always feeling out of control, your system is not working. It should provide you with a feeling that you at least know what you're not getting done. Constantly in react mode we're still going to be in react mode sometimes. But if that's all you're doing, you're not managing your time.
And react mode is new stuff is
new
constantly
stuff's coming in, and we go right to it. Right, either because it's in front of us and we don't have some list to look at, or because we're not spending enough time on those important, not urgent things, and this stuff is just starting to pile up and we don't have the control over what we're doing. The other thing is, God forbid, if your task list is pages long, but if your backlog's pages long, you're probably either not paying attention to it or you're putting things on it that shouldn't be there, or you're breaking things down too small. Mm-hmm. So those are all warning signs that something needs adjustment.
This afternoon, once you're done with your presentation, people get up, walk out. What do you hope that they're taking with them from your presentation?
I hope that if nothing else, they go out and they do this task list thing that they look at twice a week or twice a day. I hope that they get the basics of all the kinds of things that need to be in the time management system, not how, but the what's, so that they can apply it and keep working on it, and they can help the people in their groups manage their own time without forcing. So if I'm a project manager, I got someone on my team who's obviously having trouble. I'm not trying to force my system on them. I can help them figure out what's going to work for them and get them back, because that's going to help our projects, right, as well as people on them.
What are some of the questions that you would expect people to ask this afternoon?
That's a good question. I think the prioritization is usually there are a lot of questions about how to do it. Do I have to do it? What if, can things more than one thing have the same priority, which on the daily list can, but not on your backlog, right? So on the daily list, I might have 2 priority ones. If my backlog has 2 priority ones, it's not a backlog. It's not working. We're being lazy. And if everything's the same priority, there's no priority, right? And it doesn't force us. The biggest thing that happens is we'll shy away from things that we don't like. that are confrontational, that we haven't broken down, whatever, and without a priority on them to make us really think about how important it is to do those, they keep going until they become an emergency.
Mm-hmm. Let's build a time machine. You go back in time to your younger self.
Yes.
What would you tell yourself about the time management system you need?
I would say look at what's out there, but don't take it as gospel. Look at it for its pieces and pick what you like, that feels good, that works for you.
Mm-hmm. And is there anything about this topic that you are still curious about, where you yourself sort of scratch your head and you're looking into, I wonder?
There always is. I'm looking at how other people do it. I'm getting books on how other people do it. I'm sure there are many techniques that I don't know about yet that have worked for people. They may not work for me, but I'm trying to help people figure out what works for them.
All right. Thank you, Kim. How can our listeners get in touch with you? What's the easiest way?
Go to my website and send an email from there. It's probably
that is ivybay.com. ivybay.com.
Yes, there's a send us an email link on there, and just go for it.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you again for the third year running, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you next year.
I hope so.
In Philadelphia.
Yes. Thank you.